Wichita Public Schools Demographic and Enrollment Analysis and Functional Building Utilization Study. As part of the strategic plan focusing on the aligned resources and infrastructure theme, RSP and Associates will conduct an in-depth demography study to assist the district in making long-term decisions. Now that the bond issue has been completed, it is essential to undertake a two-part study to support long-term budget forecasting and frame planning discussions around facilities, staffing, and program needs into the future. Information from this study will be used as a tool for engaging the community in planning discussions. The 2018-19 study is focused on two components: demographic and enrollment analysis and functional building utilization. It is recommended the board approve the agreement with RSP and Associates to provide a comprehensive demography study that will include a student enrollment demographic and functional building utilization analysis for an amount not to exceed $300,000 for the 2018-19 school year.
Welcome, Fabian. This is the Fabian night.
No
if
kidding.
If you got the flu, we'd have been in trouble tonight.
I hope that I've met my quota for the year, okay? Well, as we continue with the evening, tonight's this particular item is directly aligned to our strategic plan. As you all know, one of the themes for the strategic plan is aligning resources and infrastructures, and this is an integral part of what we need to move forward. As we look, this particular study has the potential to touch many areas of our district, from budget to staffing to program assignments, so there are a wide array of pieces that this demography study will touch. So as I give you a little background, first, the bond issue was completed in the spring of 2017. Robinson Middle School was the last project that we completed as a part of that. In the aftermath of that, we've identified the need to conduct a demographic analysis based first on the changes in the local economy. As you know, our economy has improved, our unemployment rate is different, which creates changes in the type of population that we're serving. Changes in student needs, as we saw increases in newcomer students and our ESOL students, as well as we've seen a growth in the amount of students with behavior challenges. As we think about the funding shortfalls, they prompted some program changes. We condensed some programs, aligned some things, which were fine then, but we need to look at, as we're looking at future growth, future changes, we need to assess some of those. And finally, the need to project into future enrollment patterns as we talk about the changing student demographics, as we think about the fact that we've been sitting at 50,000 students for the last several years. Are we expecting that trend to go up or to go down? We worked through a formal RFP process, or a request for proposal, and out of that, RSP and Associates was selected to conduct this particular study. Now, to give you a background on RSP and Associates, it should not be a new name to our community and to some of you. Robert Schwartz is the owner of the company, and Mr. Schwartz is back there. They are based out of Overland Park. RSP stands for Robert Schwartz Planning, just so you know. They have extensive experience in this area. They've worked a lot in the Midwest, from Iowa to Nebraska to Missouri. Most recently, they worked with Derby. They worked with us first in 2009 and again through 2012. Initially in 2009, we've commissioned them to come do a study for us, actually a study very similar to what they're going to be doing for us this time around, should you approve the item. And it was in the aftermath of busing for desegregation. And at the time, we were seeing significant enrollment changes in our district, and we needed the ability to be able to project what our enrollment patterns were going to look like in the future. Then we brought them back around 2011, and they guided us through the boundary process at that point. I want to make very clear, because a lot of people will assume RSP that they're coming in to do a boundary study. This is not a boundary study at this point, and you'll see with what we're commissioning them to do. It is simply an analysis of data that we need to have in order for us to project in the future. Could this eventually lead to a boundary study? Yes, but right now we need to know where our student enrollment is and our demographics are in order for us to be able to move forward in the future and make strategic decisions. So as we look at the scope of service, the first, and I will go into more detail as we move into the presentation. The first analysis that they'll provide for us is an enrollment analysis. That's simply looking at our enrollment patterns and projecting into the future. The next one is a demographic analysis, which looks at our population of students within particular boundaries and lets us know what type of student we serve in the community that resides within them. The functional building utilization, that looks at each one of our facilities and allows us to understand the type of programming that we have within each one of these facilities. And the final one would be presentations to you all to report their findings. This will hopefully be the last time you'll hear from me on this topic, as they'll come in. As you know, Rob is a very gifted presenter and will be able to guide us through the results of the study. So as we think about the enrollment analysis, first, it provides enrollment projections for the next 5 years. This gives us the ability to look into that crystal ball and to project into the future. It also helps us understand enrollment shifts and demographic trends. What RSP does is they meet with county city planners, collect data, and then they combine that data with historical enrollment trends and informations to move forward to the future. These formulas that you see, I actually took specifically from their presentation. Each one of these variables represents an item, whether it's an enrollment trends, whether it's city data, whether it's planning data, to be able to project into the future. That's something that we internally currently do not have the mechanism to do. I can go back, I can look at prior data for previous years and give you what changes we had. But as we look at moving into the future, that's something that we currently don't have the internal mechanism to project. And that's data that you need. We're currently doing a book study on the 4 disciplines of execution. And they talk about lag data and lead data. And as you discuss, if you think about lead data, that's the data that you need to project into the future. Lag data is looking at past data. And they make the mention that by making decisions through lag data, it's the equivalent of driving a car while looking at your rearview mirror. So you are making decisions based on what happened in the past, but you're not anticipating the bumps or the road or the curves that might be coming your way. And so it's important for us to be able to look at that windshield and anticipate what enrollment trends and shifts we're expecting as we move towards the future. So this is an example of what an enrollment analysis looks like. They'll address the capacity. We'll get one of these for each one of our levels, elementary, middle, and high, for all of our schools and for the entire district. They give us 3 different numbers. First is reside and attend. That is the historical data of the number of students that reside within a particular boundary and actually attend that school. The second number is the reside. That is the total number of students that reside within a particular boundary. And the last number is the attend. That's the actual number of kids that are attending that building. And as you look at the differences within that, then we're able to have those analyses as to why is this particular boundary losing 50% of their students? Is it because they have a high ESOL population and their students are going elsewhere? Why are they getting a different number of students coming in? Is it because they're the recipients of a special categorical program? And so it really gives us a deeper look into the data from the past. And then moving forward, then it gives us the reside number to project into the future. So that is really the enrollment analysis. And again, it's a mechanism, a piece of data that we currently don't have the ability to get. The next study that they would conduct for us would be the demographic analysis. That helps us better understand the students' population for the district as a whole and for each building. It provides us specific trend information on the population of students that we serve, gives us enrollment demographics, so it takes the enrollment report and incorporates it into this, gives us housing characteristics, the age of structure, socioeconomic profiles, and land use. This is actually an example from one that they provided for us in the past. This is one for Robinson Middle School. As you can tell, they give us the student populations, what percentage of their students are ELL, what percentage of their students that actually attend are ELL. So in this particular example, Robinson doesn't have an ELL program, so that's why those 8% of their students are not attending there. It gives us special education numbers as well as free and reduced. It gives us population trends for the particular boundaries, looking at census data. It also gives us the reside and attend numbers and projections. It gives us the enrollment numbers as well as land use. So they look at housing patterns, how many of the houses, what percentage of the houses within that boundary are single-family homes or multifamily homes, manufactured homes. And then they also give us the socioeconomic profile of each one of the boundaries. The final analysis that they would conduct for us is a functional building utilization study. And again, we've got to come up with a better name for this, and no one has been able to give me some ideas. But as we look at this is the study that we have not received in the past. So this is brand new. RSP is newer into doing this, and so this will give us the complete data set that we can combine with some of the enrollment trends that they'll provide us. This helps us understand the physical and educational utilization of every single one of our buildings. So what they do is they send their planners, they conduct a walkthrough in every single one of our buildings. They have meetings with the principals of each one of those buildings to talk about educational programming, talk about concerns, historical data, and then they want to look at future use of each facility. They will give us both a preliminary report and a final report at the end. The preliminary report is simply a status quo. This is based on, if you leave everything the same, what you currently have. And then the final report is they will make some recommendations to district leadership as far as utilization of some of our buildings and also program assignments for our district. So this is an example of a middle school functional building utilization report. And I picked the middle school because it gives you the middle ground. The elementary is pretty cut and dry, grade level, number of sections. This is a little bit more complicated. As a part of the study, we would identify the desirable capacity versus the standard capacity. So we as a district would decide what the lowest number of kids we would want per classroom in those core classes are, and then what the maximum, what the cap should be. This is a little bit different than the way that we've looked at this in the past. The other piece is then it looks at the non-core classrooms, and it identifies also that capacity based on space, and then it looks at other programs. This is very different from the way we viewed capacity in the past as we think of bond, because in the past we've taken maximum usage of space. So if we can say that we can fit a maximum of 30 kids in a particular classroom, we multiply that times the number of classroom, and that's how we got the capacity. This is different because it actually looks at the actual usage of that space. So if there's a particular classroom that has a capacity of 30, if you were housing a core regular education classroom, but you're using it for a categorical program, it completely changes the capacity of that classroom, and it reduces it down by a good 20 students. So in the past, we've never taken that into account, where now we'll be able to have a legitimate functional capacity figure for our buildings based on the programs that we're currently housing.
And I just want to add to that larger school districts, lots of them from the council, actually have a department that utilizes this kind of formulas and do all this kind of stuff, and they're part of their staff. And they do these analysis and this stuff like this all the time. That's what their job is, and they keep track of all of these things and it's critical for aligning all of your resources and the infrastructure and keeping up with all of that. So we've got to keep up with this in order to give you good data and good information to make informed decisions about how we move as it relates to our resources and our infrastructure. So I just want to also make that clear before we move forward, that this is something that should be ongoing. And I see my architect lady down here, just board member, she's shaking her head, that we need to make sure as a board, you all, we need to make sure that we have this updated and kept up to par so that you all can have this to make good decisions.
So as you think about this report, I mean, it has the potential to impact many areas of our district, from program assignments to staffing to budget allocation in terms of capital. There are a wide array of uses. The ultimate goal, as Dr. Thompson mentioned, would be for us to be able to sustain this portion of the report. So RSP does all that work for us. And then as we see the need to increase programs or move programs, we would sustain this. And as we look at this holistically, where instead of looking at where we currently have the space, maybe looking at opening up programs near to where the students currently reside, then we would be able to adjust capacities based on the programs that we're moving and the needs that we have. So that is the functional building utilization report.
We so gently call it F-bus.
I don't know that Lisa appreciates that, but so as we look at the analysis timeline, RSP, provided the item is approved today, would begin working this fall. They would work to analyze data from the district, from the county, from the city to begin building the enrollment and demographic study. Then they would also begin working with my office to visit every single one of our buildings. And as you think about it, it is a massive undertaking when you're looking at 90 buildings, and when you think about an East High and the massiveness of that building, to do a full walkthrough and really do an analysis of every functional space within that building. So they'll do that beginning in the fall through the spring of 2019 to identify the capacities. Then in the spring, early summer of next year, they would come back for a presentation. At that point, they would present the enrollment and demographic analysis, looking at trends, give you the 5-year projection, and then they will give you the facility, the preliminary facility usage analysis. So they'll give you the status quo of, if you were to leave all your programs where they're at right now, this is what your capacity should be at for every building. And at the same time, they will be meeting with district leadership to work on finalizing the functional building utilization analysis. Then in the fall, early winter of 2019, they would come back and present the functional building utilization final report, and they would finalize the report at that time. So the bottom line, as we think about moving forward in our needs as a district, first, this study is key to future resource allocation. As we look at strategically planning where we need to allocate our resources, we need to know where our highest need is. Results will impact long-term budget and planning as we think about capital outlay and program allocation. This provides essential information about our community demographic trends and future student and community needs. It allows us to assure that our facilities are efficiently and effectively aligned to support student achievement. And as we think about the changing demographics in the future, this study allows us to determine our building capacities and assess the most efficient use for each building to provide the maximum support for student achievement. This information, as we receive it, will be used as a tool to engage our community in planning discussions for the future. And as we think about the longer term, whether it's grants, all of this is information that we need as we move forward. Questions?
We do have some. Ben?
So I was thinking maybe instead of functional building utilization study, we could call it the attendance center alignment. Attendance center alignment.
ACA?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. The other thing my engineering background has me looking at charts and seeing numbers to the last decimal place and going, there's got to be a plus or minus there somewhere. I'd like to see that in a final report if possible. I know it's projection, so it's not going to be accurate, but consumers of this data need to know that it's not exactly to the individual student
And
number.
I think as a part of the final report, that would be provided as part of the study. So.
The other thing that I would like as part of the final report is a digitally digestible version of it. I know since we'll be receiving it, it'll be public data, but I think the public could use this data in a digital form, like a CSV or an XLS or, okay, I'm getting nerdy here again, but yeah. So, but yeah, in a way that can be digested via computer rather than just a flat PDF.
Okay.
And then Dr. Thompson, this is a question for you. So when it was decided that we needed to get this data, and then the decision was made to go do an RFP rather than do it in-house, could you like explain the methodology of how you came to the conclusion that we didn't have the capacity in-house to do this work and that we needed to go to an RFP?
Yes, if you look on that page with the formula on it. Yeah, like slide number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see that formula down there? When I asked my staff if anyone knows how to do that, they all looked at me and said no. So that's the methodology that we leave. No, seriously. We actually, we know we do not have staff on board. We can kind of do our own little we think, or this looks like this, or we think we ought to do. But that's not a good way to make good decisions. So we need some expertise and some people who are planners to be able to help us to do this work. In the future, if that's something the board desires to do is to have a department to do that, so be it. But we also know that that's expensive to do, to have a department of people to do this on a regular basis. So I think we also have probably the least expensive route at this point. That was another consideration for that. I'm sure you can go employ a planner to do this, but you'd need a couple or so of them to be able to do this on an ongoing basis. And at this time, this will be our best resource and the best efficient way to do it.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Stan?
I just wanted to reemphasize, so we have not had this type of information, demographic information, since about 2008?
2012.
Okay, 2012. So if this study is going to be good for 5 years, we're about a year behind on.
Maybe we help explain that question again.
Well, I'm just saying, are we behind? Because right now it feels like we're driving blind a little bit. And is it because we have not had demographic studies done on a timely basis? I guess that's what.
That would be a correct statement.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
Oh, okay. I just have a couple questions. One, first of all, I want to thank you and Alicia and the rest of your team for seeking data, because we are a data-driven board, and this is a great way for us to get data to be able to make informed decisions, because who knows what's going to happen in the future. And hopefully we will continue to get money, but if we don't, we really have to have data to be able to drive us. So thank you for doing that. And my second question is, this data, we're going to get our final report in the spring, and then starting in the fall, I guess my question is, will this data come in time for us to make some adjustments to our buildings? For example, an ESOL program. We need to add an ESOL program. Will this data be available soon enough for us to use it for planning for the next school year? Or are we a year out before we can really make those kinds of decisions?
They're smiling at me, and we are a year out.
Okay.
However, this will not, if there are things that come up that we know we just have to do, or programs we know we just need to move, we've been doing that. So we'll just continue to do that. But again, it will not, we're going to try to not do it until we're complete with our study. But if there's something that comes up that is urgent, the board should respond to that. But we should not be making any more major decisions about anything until we have good data. That's our hope.
Because it's not good for kids to have a program at Building A this year and at Building B next year.
That's why we don't want to do much unless it's urgent.
Okay, that was my question. So, and thank you. This was a great presentation. We appreciate this opportunity, and we, as a board, do need to make a decision on this tonight.
I'd like to recommend that the board approve the agreement with RSP Associates to provide the comprehensive demographic study.
I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion, a motion by Julie and a second by Ben to approve this motion. You may cast your vote. Motion passes 6-0.